Thank you everyone for joining the webinar this evening. We do have some folks who are joining us, so I'll see the number of our participants kind of go up throughout the next few minutes. But in the meantime, I'll do some announcements, introductions, and kind of go over what our plan is for this evening. So good evening to everyone, and thank you for joining. My name is Kristen Cawthorn, and I'm the Assistant Dean for First and Second Year Experience and Community Development, and I will be your host for tonight's webinar. So there's just a few housekeeping items before we get started. The session is being recorded and posted online for any student who may have missed it. But you yourself are not, your face is not being recorded, nor your voice is being recorded, just the members of our panelists. There's also a chat button at the bottom. Feel free to ask any questions and I'll do my best to answer the questions that you may have. If we don't answer the questions, you have two options. You can email one of our panelists a specific question, or you can email the new students at colgate.edu email account, and I will make sure to get an answer to your question. Lastly, this webinar will be about 50 minutes to an hour. We're really excited for you to join us this evening. We know that you may be anxious and nervous about starting college in the fall, how you will make new friends and find community, and what student life is like at Colgate. I have 6 talented students who are joining me today to share their stories and experiences with you. Throughout March and April, many of you emailed us or submitted questions through a variety of webinars. We have taken your questions and organized them into 3 categories: adjusting to college, academics, and life at Colgate. And then we'll wrap up the webinar with each of them giving a piece of advice to you as you start your college career. So let's get started. I'm going to ask each person on the panel to introduce themselves, where they call home, and a little bit about their transition to Colgate. So Nick, if you would like to start.
Hi everyone, I'm Nick Rajabasaredi. Home is the San Francisco Bay Area in California. And although I came to Colgate without knowing anyone, and there's no one from my high school that has gone to Colgate in the past, I was able to quickly get adjusted and form communities through the different activities I joined in my freshman seminar and things like that.
Great.
I'll go next. I'm Mark Verweel, and despite having lived in the Philadelphia area for a number of years now, the Netherlands is still home to me. So I'm from the Northeast. Colgate was a much smaller journey, and I also have 2 older siblings who both went to college, but still coming into the Colgate experience was something new, but also something very exciting. So it was a very cool transition for me personally.
Awesome.
Hi everyone, my name is Anisha Mittal and I call home Dunville, New Jersey. I guess kind of similar to Mark, the biggest transition difference for me was going from a small school where I knew everyone and could probably walk to the dining hall blinds, and to a campus where I didn't know anyone. But I think it was just knowing that that's part of college, and part of what makes it so exciting is meeting new people and having new experiences.
Great.
Hi everyone, I'm Estelle Kelty, and I call home Bronxville, New York, which is in Westchester. So statistically, some of you on this webinar are probably also in Westchester. And my transition, I came from a pretty small high school, so it was kind of similar in that we're also a really close-knit community, but I think Colgate does a really good job helping students transition and adjust to college life. So I would say similar to everyone else, it was a pretty smooth transition.
Great.
Hi, I'm Johanna. I call Buffalo, New York home. And like Nick was saying, I didn't know anyone that was going to Colgate, and so I was definitely worried about feeling a little isolated, but getting involved and doing a pre-orientation definitely helped me make friends and find community.
Awesome.
Hi everyone, I'm Ellie Casera. I'm originally from the suburbs of Chicago, but my family moved out to Jackson Hole, Wyoming. So I now live out in Wyoming, which is about 3 flights to Syracuse, New York, across the country, and not always easy to travel back and forth. But despite that, I definitely now consider Colgate one of my homes as well. And I am happy, hopefully, to return in the fall.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for introducing yourselves. And we'll kind of get started with our first question, and I'll give it over to Estelle. Why did you choose Colgate?
So I chose Colgate primarily because I think there's such a palpable sense of community even before I got on campus as a student. So when I went to visit Colgate, I actually got to sit in on a couple of classes, biology classes, because I kind of knew that's where I wanted to head. And even after the class, the professors took time out of their busy schedules to talk to me and ask me about my interests, tell me about some research they've been doing with students and things like that. And this was even before I had applied to Colgate. So I think from the moment I stepped on Colgate's campus, I felt that there's like a really strong sense of community there. So for me, that's one of the reasons that I could see myself being a part of Colgate.
That's wonderful. So Mark, could you talk a little bit about how Colgate builds and maintains its sense of community?
Yeah, so as Estelle mentioned, I think community is really one of the core aspects of being a Colgate student, and Colgate really excels in developing that community. First and foremost, I mean, it's a small liberal arts college in a pretty remote area, so that kind of naturally lends itself to a sense of community. Then there are also a ton of clubs and activities and different classes that allow you really to interact with people who are passionate about the same sorts of things that you are. So it's really a great opportunity to get to meet people with similar interests right from the get-go. And then I think one of the really strong parts is the fact that there's really a huge buy-in to that whole community atmosphere. Every single student that I've met at Colgate is really happy to say hi to a stranger, to help someone who they think might need some help. So I think just the fact that everyone really buys into that sense of community really helps to perpetrate it then for the next class.
That's awesome. So Ellie, you talked a little bit about your kind of 3 flights in order to get to Syracuse, to get to Colgate. And so you really seem somewhat far away from the campus. How do you feel like you've been able to adjust based off of where you're living and then where Colgate is?
Yeah, I was definitely a little bit stressed out before I went to Colgate that a lot of students would head home on the weekends or would see their families really often. And sometimes, of course, that is the case. But at the same time, I think Mark actually said it pretty well. A lot of Colgate really buys into staying on campus and making the most of their short 4 years, I guess. So it's very common for even students that live just 20 minutes down the road to really spend every weekend, even some break time on campus, and just indulge themselves in the culture and the community. So I never really found that I was missing out on traveling home, seeing my family. A lot of times my family would meet me somewhere in the middle. Like I said, I'm from Chicago, so we would kind of bridge the gap that way. And additionally, Colgate has a lot of extended break options. So if I couldn't go home for fall break, I could take part in one of those outdoor education or Cove extended break options that Colgate has to offer.
And can you talk a little bit about how do you actually get from Syracuse to Colgate? What are some options that you've used in order to get from, because Syracuse is not around the corner from Hamilton, New York. So how do you get from Syracuse down to Hamilton?
So there's a lot of options. I've tried all of them, but now I think the best system that I found, a recent Student Government Association initiative began a big ride sharing Google Doc that goes out before breaks. So before Thanksgiving and winter break comes around, there's a shared, spreadsheet that goes to the entire student body, and it is for all of us to indicate whether we need a ride or are able to give a ride to a student and where we're going. So that could be somewhere on the East Coast that people are just driving to, or that may be the Syracuse airport, and it indicates how many students they can offer space to. So I've used that a number of times, and it's very reliable. And again, students are very willing to help each other out in terms of that if you don't have access to a car. But also the Colgate Cruiser does trips to the Syracuse airport before break times, and it's very easy to schedule those bus tickets.
Awesome. So we are in Hamilton, New York, beautiful Hamilton, New York. And so it is slightly rural than maybe New York City. So Nick, could you talk a little bit about Hamilton and the rural area, the weather, how students should prepare for life in Hamilton?
When I first came to Hamilton, I didn't realize how small of a town it was. there's literally like 2 streets in like the downtown area. And I initially couldn't really imagine myself like living in that sort of area, like growing up in like the suburbs of San Francisco, going to the city a lot. But I've come to realize that I think the rural nature is really what's giving it like Hamilton like its charm. So like everyone, it's not like a city school where people just go off campus every day, or like on the weekends or something like that. People usually stay on campus or downtown. And there's also like one thing I always say is like we have one of everything. Like we have like one sandwich shop, like one like one diner. You might not have like multiple things, but you can like get Chinese food or Indian food if you want it. And also coming from California where it's like significantly warmer. I had never actually like lived in snow. Like I'd seen it when I went like skiing and stuff, but I'd never like lived through like a Northeast winter. And not gonna lie, the winters in Hamilton are pretty cold. So just have a good pair of boots and like a coat and stuff like that. I didn't like whatever, if you're coming from the West Coast and like not used to a winter on the East Coast, like everything you think you need, get like 2 of them. So like 2 coats, like layer up, that kind of stuff. But like it definitely is nice. And I really actually do like winter in Hamilton. It's like really pretty, and the town decorates itself for Christmas and stuff like that. And that was something I didn't have back in California that I now have.
So what would be the best winter activity that you feel like you've explored or tried or did that you may not have done when you've been in California?
I really like the ski club, which is different from the ski team. They have like free like lift tickets, like and like trips to different places around Colgate. So you can, if you bring your skis up, you can like go skiing basically like on the weekends, which wasn't really something that was available to me in California. And also like outdoor education has a bunch of like winter activities. My sophomore year, I went like ice wall climbing, which was really cool, and obviously something you can't really do in San Francisco.
Okay, good to know. So Nick talked about that there's one of everything in Hamilton, which is exciting. Johanna, can you talk a little bit about what there is to do in Hamilton? So Nick gave us a little preview, but can you kind of share a little bit more as to all the great things that there is to do in Hamilton?
Yeah, so like Nick said, it's definitely a little like shocking at first how small Hamilton is, but it is a really charming place. One of the most popular events in Hamilton is the farmers market. So when the weather is nice, I think it runs from Memorial Day to Columbus Day. There's a farmers market every Saturday, and people from like all over the area come to sell different things, and you can get lots of different like food and crafts, and it's also just fun to walk around. There's lots of dogs, and so that's a really lovely way to spend any Saturday morning. We also have a movie theater, which is really nice. Since it's like a local owned one, it's not nearly as expensive as the Regal. So that's really great. And also Colgate will sponsor free movies every semester. So there's about 5, I think, each semester, and that's really fun. We also, when it's warmer, have the boathouse, which not a lot of people know about actually, but all Colgate students have access to. It's completely free. You just have to go and bring your Colgate ID, and then you can rent paddle boards, kayaks, canoes on Lake Moraine, and it's really nice when the weather is warm. We also, like Nick was saying, every winter there is a Christmas tree lighting, and it's like a really big celebration, and it's really fun and just really adorable. It has that really nice like small town vibe to it. So those are some of like the regular events, but there's also fun different events that pop up, and they have a Facebook page called This is Hamilton, New York, and it's also an Instagram page where they highlight just like all the fun things going on in the town and the surrounding areas. So yeah, there's actually a lot happening for it being only 2 streets.
Thanks, Johanna. So Anisha, can you talk a little bit about pre-orientations? I know Johanna talked about pre-orientation, but I know that you also attended a pre-orientation. Can you talk a little bit about your experience?
Sure. So I was lucky enough to be able to spend 5 days backpacking in the Adirondacks before orientation. It was led by Colgate upperclassmen, which is really nice because they got to ease us into Colgate life by sharing their experiences, very similar to what Link staff does during orientation. The trip pushed us physically and mentally. One day we hiked 11 miles. It was peeing behind trees and not showering for 5 days. But I came back to Colgate feeling a sense of community with people totally unknown to me 5 days prior, just through that shared experience. It was amazing to be able to walk onto campus with a few friendly faces to say hi to.
Awesome. And Johanna, can you talk a little bit about your PREO experience, which one that you attended?
Yeah, so similar to Anisha, I also did a wilderness adventure program. So mine was a mix of backpacking and canoeing. And like Anisha said, it's just really nice knowing, especially like knowing no one before, like you bond with these people over the 5 days that you're in the woods together. And you also come back knowing 2 upperclassmen that led your trip. And it really makes a difference, like feeling like, oh, well, there's how many people, like 1,500 people that I don't know, but there's 8 that I do. Like it definitely makes a difference.
And I know that some of the incoming students are maybe wondering if PREOs are going to be happening because of classes being online or not in the fall semester. And so I know each of the PREO programs is looking both at options for in-person as well as an online experience. So even though you may not be maybe canoeing here in Hamilton or in the Adirondacks, they hopefully are trying to create a great experience where they can do something that still creates community, because the most important part that I think I've learned from both Anisha and from Johanna is about creating community, finding a smaller group of people that you can feel friendly with and make a connection with. So just for everyone to know that we're looking at different ways that PREOs could still occur, whether they're in person or online. So we talked a little bit about adjustment, and now I kind of want to get to some academic stuff. And I see that we have some questions about academics. So I think probably the first one we'll start with is actually thinking about the physical education requirement. I know that that is something that is one of the core values within Colgate itself. And so Ellie, could you talk a little bit about the physical education requirement? Why do we have it? And ways that students can actually get the PE credits that they need?
Yeah, so you all might be thinking, wow, going to college, I didn't think I would have to do any more PE requirements in my life. I thought that too. So I actually found the PE requirement a great way to get involved my first year at Colgate, and I completed it without even trying to within my first year. And I have found a lot of my friends have done the same. But there are a number of ways to fulfill this requirement. And really the reason we have it is because, as probably most of you know by now, Colgate is a liberal arts institution. So it's just another aspect of this like well-rounded lifestyle that we live. And I guess, I mean, there's so many ways that you can fulfill this requirement. I'm not even gonna be able to begin to list them all, but you can do something that is more for the athletically inclined. So if you are going to be a varsity athlete, though that would of course fulfill the requirement. Also club sports, you could take 10 spin classes or 10 yoga classes put on by some of our own Colgate students. That could fulfill the requirement. For the less athletically inclined, you could do a number of wellness classes. So I actually participated in a positive sexuality workshop called Yes Means Yes that Colgate has. That was great. That fulfilled the requirement. Wilderness adventures would, as well as other outdoor education trips. So again, I don't even think I'm beginning to dent the list, but there is a number of ways, and they're all posted on our website as well. But I really loved it because, again, it just expanded my horizons to meeting new people. And to this day, I'm still friends with some people that I took that workshop with 2.5 years ago now. So it is, yeah, just a great way to get involved and to meet new people when you arrive at Colgate.
Awesome. I think I might want to take the PE requirement, even though I don't have to as a staff member, because who doesn't want to take 10 spin classes? So thinking about the first year of Colgate experience, all of the first year students actually do what's called an FSEM, which is a first year seminar, FSEM. And then each of the first years are assigned a faculty advisor through their FSEM. Nick, can you talk a little bit about what an FSEM is and how students engage with their faculty advisor?
A freshman seminar course is kind of a course trying to get you inculated into like a college work style. So most of them have like some sort of writing requirement, and the professor will like walk you through how to like write an essay on the college level. And one thing I find really interesting about them are they're usually topics that professor doesn't get to teach in other like classes that they offer, and they're usually like out of the box like creative topics. For example, like Elias Selenai's FSEM was historicizing young adult literature, which was taught by an English professor, but like young adult literature isn't really like a focus of Colgate's like English literature program. So she took the FSEM as like an opportunity to not only teach us about something that we probably wouldn't like learn about later in different like avenues, but also like teaching us how to like write a college essay, how to like do research, what are the different resources available to us. And your freshman seminar professor stays as your first year advisor until you declare your major. And when you declare your major, you will declare a major advisor. And they're often like really helpful because they're usually professors who've been at Colgate for a while, and they can point you to different resources available and help guide you through the different process. And one thing I really liked about our FSEM is it became like a little community where we would get excited about seeing each other, and we're still, a lot of us are still pretty good friends 3 years later, which is really cool. And also the FSEM can teach you about things that you would have never learned before. Like coming into Colgate, I hated English, but now I'm an English minor. So that like the FSEM really changed my sort of like academic career in that way.
Awesome. So Anisha, I know that you came in as undeclared. How do you think really doing classes in a liberal arts education helped you figure out what your major wanted to be, and how stressed were you about being an undeclared student? Was it something that you felt like you had to know what you wanted to do, or did you feel the liberal arts education allowed you the ability to explore what you actually wanted your major to be?
Yeah, so I came into college really excited to be undeclared, actually, because I felt like all through high school, my entire course load had been decided for me, and there were so many things I had never even heard of. So I decided to spend my first semester focusing on graduation requirements. So like the core and areas of inquiry, I ended up taking intro level classes in economics, English, philosophy, international relations. One of those, peace and conflict studies, ended up being one of my majors. And I think it was an incredible opportunity because I got to meet professors and students from across the school, attend plays, and explore the lab facilities. It was an incredible introduction to a new place. And I think that one of the beautiful things about a school like Colgate is that value derives less from a specific major and more about being able to explore new ways of thinking. And I think coming in undeclared allowed me to capitalize on that perfectly. So I ended up declaring 2 majors by the end of my sophomore year, which is probably like the last time you have to declare. And I'm really excited about them.
So one of the questions that came in from Robert was how will class registration work? And also how will we know what classes we choose? Can you talk a little bit about that? Thinking about how you declared your major and how you chose your classes. So how does class registration work?
So the way Colgate does it is a lottery system. It breaks you up by last name. So like A through L, and then so on and so on. And in that time period, all of the classes are available for the first slot, and they fill up by time. So like A through L goes first, and then those spots are taken, the next group goes, and it goes like that. And because Colgate is such a small school, it's pretty easy to get the classes that you want. I remember coming in freshman year, I just kind of took whatever, but also even if you don't get the classes that you want, it's pretty easy to still switch into classes. So I remember really wanting to be in introduction to international relations. So that first week I just went in and like just kept sitting in the first row of the class every single day. And eventually the professor just let me stay. He was like, we have a desk, go ahead and take it. So it might seem stressful, the lottery system, but it's definitely easy to work around if you know what you want to do. And even if you just want to try new things, I think that's the perfect opportunity.
So eagerness and persistence pays off. If you sit in the front row, you will get in any class that you're looking to get into. So is that registration also the same for an incoming student, or is that registration primarily for upper class students? Is there a difference for first year students and upper class students as relates to class registration?
So class registration goes by school year. It goes seniors first, then juniors and sophomores, and then freshmen. But as far as I remember, I'm pretty sure it's the same process.
Okay. Anyone else that would like to chime in about class registration and your first year of classes?
I believe it's a slightly different process for incoming first year students. I think for incoming first year students, you get to make a selection of your top choices, and then the registrar figures it out for there. But there is still the drop add period that Anisha was talking about, where you can sit in that front row of a class you unfortunately didn't get into.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. So Mark, you kind of actually, I'd love to hear from you to kind of talk a little bit about your pre-engineering experience. I know that that's kind of what you started off with. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. So the pre-engineering program is a really cool opportunity that I was briefly involved in, but some really close friends of mine are still involved in, that is available to physics majors. So essentially how it works is you get an advisor. There's a certain member of the physics faculty dedicated to guiding you through it. And in your first 3 years at Colgate, you take the standard physics curriculum, the standard Colgate curriculum, and then some dedicated classes for whatever field of engineering, whatever school you end up applying to. And so after those 3 years, you can apply to, I believe the current participating schools are Columbia, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, and Washington University in St. Louis. And so if you've met those requirements, and there are some GPA requirements attached with them, you're automatically accepted to one of those schools. And so after your junior year at Colgate, you move to one of those schools to then complete another 2 years, and you actually graduate with a Bachelor of Arts from Colgate in physics, and then also a Bachelor of Science from one of those other institutions in whatever field of engineering you decided to specialize in. So it's a really interesting way to kind of combine the physics education and the liberal arts education, because even though you're taking all of these classes, you still definitely have opportunities to explore other things. I think you can even get into a minor at Colgate in those first 3 years, but then also still go down if you're looking more towards the master's route, more towards a traditional engineering school. It's a really cool way to combine those two. So it's a really, really cool program, and I know some friends who are very excited. Sad to be leaving Colgate, but really excited to have that opportunity presented to them.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. Estelle, could you talk a little bit about pre-health? I know that you are actually a pre-health major. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I knew coming into Colgate that I was really interested in going pre-health. So even before I got to campus, I actually was connected with our pre-health advisor on campus, Professor Shinatri, and she's great. We have a really, really strong pre-health advising program, especially for such a small school. And she handles like nursing, vet school, medical school, PA program. So all of that is all encompassed in our advising program. So what she did was actually help me get myself on a track, an academic track, to take courses in a specific order that would help me in getting those prerequisites done by the time I wanted to apply to medical school. So even before I came to Colgate or even did the registration process that Anisha was talking about, she told me we recommend kids or students take chem first and then biology, and in this order. And so that was really helpful for me so that I could even start thinking about it before I had enrolled in any classes. And now as I become an upperclassman, we have a couple meetings, once every month or so, and we go over where my status is now, looking forward to applications and studying for the MCAT. She's been really critical in kind of helping me work through that. I think we also have a couple really positive things for pre-medical or pre-health students, and one of those being research opportunities. Because we're such a small school and we don't have a graduate population, a lot of the research that our science professors get to do comes to undergraduates, and so that's a really unique opportunity for people to get involved in even before they're going to apply to these medical schools. So I've been able to do some independent research with a couple of my biology professors, whereas people in my situation, at bigger schools may not be able to have that opportunity. The Hamilton community is also really great. We offer a shadowing program through the pre-health office every semester. So if you're interested in just getting some experience, seeing if you might be interested in something. We have connections with local physicians, dentists, vets, etc. So you can apply and you can go and actually shadow them for a little while and see if that's something you might be interested in. So there's a lot, but we have a really, really strong pre-health advising department. So if anyone has any specific questions, feel free to email me. But overall, it's been a really positive experience with our pre-health department.
That's really great to hear. Thanks, Estelle.
Mm-hmm.
Johanna, can you talk a little bit about the course workload and your transition from high school to college, and is the college courses much different in academic rigor as they were in high school?
Yeah, so I mean, they are much harder in my opinion than my high school classes were, but you're also only taking 4 classes instead of like the 7 or 8 that you took in high school. So you're really able to focus on those classes more, and like while you do have more work, you have less classes to balance that out. To answer the question from earlier, most people do take 4 classes, and as a first year, your fall semester, you're only allowed to take 4 classes. After that, you can take 5 if you want, but unless you declare your major kind of late, or like you want to add on a minor or a double major, you usually don't have to do that, and there's not really any need to. So it's only for very ambitious people. Yeah, I feel like the course load in general, though, is just kind of different. It's definitely more independent. So I know in high school, like we would go in and the teacher would just tell you everything that you would need to know. Whereas in college, they give you readings that you have to do before the class. And then you come into class knowing that information from the readings, and then they use that as a building point for the lecture. And also, like, I felt like in high school there was a lot of small assignments, whereas in college there tends to be more larger assignments. And this also means that the professor has less of an idea every day of how you are doing. So it's more on you to like manage your time correctly, and also make sure that you're doing well and understanding what's going on in lectures. And if you don't, like going to office hours or getting tutoring and seeking help.
Awesome. Okay, let's shift a little bit to just life at Colgate. And so, Johanna, actually, what was the res halls and the Commons community like when you first came to Colgate?
So my first year, I was in a suite with 4 people, and so it was 2 doubles and a common room. There's a lot of different options. We have singles, doubles, suites like that. There's triples. There is also suites that are connected by a bathroom and like a little hallway. But the one I was in, which most of the dorms are, there's like a lot of rooms on one floor, and you share a bathroom with everyone on your floor. Most of the floors are co-ed, but there is one building west, and you can request on your housing form that the floors are gendered. So it'll be all girls on one floor and all boys on the other. It's really nice. There's definitely like a big community within your floor. You have a CL, which is what a lot of other schools call an RA, who coordinate like a lot of activities for your floor. So I know my floor used to do like twice a month, we would get pizza, and we'd all just kind of hang out in the common room. That's another thing. A lot of dorms every dorm has a common room, but some have study spaces on every floor too. And that's a really nice way to meet other people from your floor. And also if you don't feel like going all the way to the library, but you don't want to study in your room, it's a nice happy medium. Yeah.
Okay. And you said RA, and normally that is a resident assistant at most places, and CL means
community leader.
So community leaders are our upper class students who help students in the residence hall. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So Anisha, can you talk a little bit about the Commons experience then, and the experience that you had around the Commons when you came in?
Sure. So when I came in, I lived in Curtis, which is Chicone Commons. And I thought Commons was another great way to find community on campus. So just something that our Commons did, we did breakfast every other Saturday downstairs, and they would cater food. Like we did waffles and chicken one time, or they did bagels or whatever. Sometimes they had mug painting. They gave us plants one time, and it was just a great way to meet the people in my building. We also had a Chicone Commons dance that a bunch of my friends went to, and they did activities on the lawn. I know one Commons took a trip to New York, maybe to Syracuse as well. I think they do a few more of those. But yeah, just like another great way to meet new people.
Awesome. And Ellie, can you talk a little bit about, I think some students have asked the question about, is there a divide between athletes and non-athlete students on campus? And I think some students have questions about that and what that looks like. Can you talk a little bit about that experience, and if you are an athlete and or friends with athletes, and how that works?
Yeah, so personally, I am not an athlete. Well, I like doing club sports, but just for fun. But I have found that there is a very minimal athlete, non-athlete social divide at Colgate. I think that's because of our size. Once again, I think that I don't actually know the exact fact on this, but I think we are one of the smaller universities that is actually Division I athletics, which is very special to Colgate. We have about 3,000 undergraduate students, but we still compete in the Division I Patriot League. So it's a lot of fun because oftentimes athletes are in our classes, live on our floors. They're in our FSEM. So Nick mentioned him and I and Estelle were all in the same FSEM our first year. We had athletes in our class, and we definitely incorporated that into our first semester. We went and cheered them on and heard about their athletics and things like that. So yeah, it's very special that we have this small community, and it's just too small for the athletes to kind of keep to themselves, or for the non-athletes to keep to themselves. Everyone is definitely friends and living next door to each other. And for that same reason, the student athletes are definitely considered students first. I don't know the exact fact on this year, but I know last year the average student athlete GPA was actually higher than the rest of the student body's average GPA. So that just goes to show that they are definitely held to the same standard that we are. They aren't, put up on a pedestal in any way, and they definitely still have a regular Colgate experience, and they are our friends and classmates and roommates and all that.
Awesome. Estelle, I know that you're involved in several clubs and organizations on campus. Can you talk a little bit about how you actually manage your academics, your involvements, and how you make sure that you're able to balance it well?
Yeah, so I think that one big difference between high school and college is, like we were saying before, you are taking the amount of time you spend in class is definitely less than what you would in high school for a full day. So you have a lot of opportunities and a lot of time to get involved in things across campus. So I think for me, one of the biggest things was really like enhancing my time management skills, and my ability to really organize my schedule and what I was doing. So I think prioritizing things is really important to me, and kind of what I like to do is make to-do lists, calendars, things like that really help me outline what it is that I'm doing for assignments or projects for clubs or other extracurriculars. So I think for me it was really a big shift in time management, because like Ellie was saying earlier, there's less focus from your professors as well on like keeping you on track with all your work. And same thing with extracurriculars, it's kind of a lot more on you. There's a lot of independence that you get going to college, and I think this is just one of the manifestations of that independence, is learning how to really, commit to things, also be responsible for things, and also work through your time management skills and make sure that you have enough time to cover all your priorities and cover your bases. But I definitely would say that the majority of students at Colgate are not just involved in academics or just one or two clubs. We have really, really involved students that love to do a lot of things. So I think it's definitely really manageable, and it's just an adjustment like everything else with college to figure out how it is that you're going to work your schedule.
Awesome. I know that you're also involved in the Greek community at Colgate, and Rebecca here asked the question of what is Rush like? Can you talk a little bit about what that experience is like and has been for you?
Yeah, so we have at Colgate a delayed recruitment process. So that means that we go through recruitment as sophomores in the fall of your sophomore year. So we don't have any recruitment processes during your freshman year. And that I actually think was really beneficial, because it allows you to make communities elsewhere that aren't just a part of the Greek Life organization or Greek Life at Colgate entirely. And that's one of the reasons that we have that delayed recruitment. So for fraternities and sororities, the recruitment process looks a little bit differently, but that is during your sophomore fall. And that kind of goes through, there's a lot of processes with our Panhellenic community on Colgate's campus, but the main thing that we have that might be a little bit different than other schools is that delayed recruitment process.
Okay. And Nick, I'm going to throw it over to you as well. I know that you're a member of the Greek community. Estelle talked a little bit about Rush. Have you experienced anything different or very similar to what Estelle talked about as it relates to you being in a fraternity and Estelle being a part of a sorority?
Well, I think like the mechanics of Rush, like scheduling wise, is different for fraternities versus sororities. I think that like the basic things that like the core tenets that Estelle brought up about like forming communities outside of your organization and things like that are really why I'm also a big fan of the delayed Rush process. I think it makes Colgate's like Greek community very different in terms of like I know a lot of my other friends at schools where they rush their like first year coming into Colgate, they coming into like another school, they like all of their friends are in like their frat. So that's like not the case at Colgate, like because of like delayed recruitment. Most of my friends are also like I have friends are like both in my fraternity and outside my fraternity, and I think it creates a more cohesive and like less exclusive environment.
So can you just then talk a little bit about social life on campus and like what there is to do both on and off campus? And do you feel that Greek life is a main element of that social life?
I would say Greek life is like a presence in social life at Colgate, but it's not like the only presence. I think if you want to be involved in Greek life, it's there. And even if you don't want to be like in Greek life, but want to still be able to go to fraternity parties and things like that. If you have friends in the organization, like oftentimes you can still attend those events and things and like associate with those people. But like there's also like various different like social outlets, like different clubs and organizations also have their own like social events. The Commons puts on a lot of like really cool social programming for the people within those commons, which is a really good activity for people. Also, like there's things like Outdoor Ed, which organizes like trips on weekends to different places where you can hike and canoe. And I think that's also another really cool thing to do. And there's also like just with your friends, you can go to a movie like downtown at the movie theater, or like hang out and like eat at like one of the restaurants in town, or we have like a bus that goes from Colgate to Syracuse every Saturday. So if you want to go into Syracuse, it's no New York City, but it's like it's a city. And if you want to explore with your friends, it's also an option. Colgate, like the surrounding area is really beautiful too. So you can walk around and have fun that way.
Awesome. And Mark, is there anything that you think would be helpful to kind of add to what Nick was kind of saying as it relates to activities or things to do, or what has been your experience as it relates to involvement at Colgate?
Yeah, that's actually one of the things that really shocked me when I came to Colgate is just the sheer magnitude of like activities and clubs and organizations to join. I mean, Colgate, like most universities, has like the standard political clubs and a debate team and a student government and both a satirical and a more serious student newspaper. But then we also have a beekeeping club, which is like shockingly active and basically a club or organization for any interest you may have. And there are new ones joining on a weekly, if not monthly basis. So there really are an absurd amount of communities where you can kind of find your little niche and find a group of people with similar interests. And then generally in terms of activities, there's so many club and intramural sports from like the basic soccer and flag football to we have an equestrian club that does really well and a ski team that has made it to nationals 2 years in a row. So they're also really good on top of just a casual ski club, as someone had mentioned earlier. So there's really so many things to be involved in, so many ways to meet new people, to kind of get outside of your comfort zone, even outside of the classroom.
Awesome. So Ellie, I know that you have a passion for skiing. Can you talk a little bit about how you've been able to have that passion happen at Colgate?
Yeah, so the skiing is a little bit different in central New York than it is out in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, but I've definitely still been able to ski more than I ever would have guessed at Colgate. So we have two main options. I would say two main options. We have an alpine ski team, which is a club team, but it's more for like ski racing. but everyone's welcome to do it, even if you've never to race before. So we have a varsity and a JV team. So if you're very competitive with ski racing, then we do have that option, but also for beginners. And that team brings you to Toggenburg Mountain, which is about 30 minutes from campus every Tuesday and Thursday night, because the mountain is lit up in the winter. So after classes are over, you go with the team to ski for a few hours and train, and then races on the weekends. And then we also have the ski club, which is what Nick was referring to. And that club sponsors trips to Toggenburg as well as other local mountains, and provides transportation as well as lift tickets, and gets you all set up if you want to just go on more of a social ski day with your friends. So that's a lot of fun for people as well. I've seen a lot of Colgate students ski for the first time, which is a lot of fun. And yeah, it's a great Saturday afternoon activity.
Okay. And we have a question that came in that said, is there a Colgate traditional event that happens every year that brings the Colgate community together? I'd actually love to have each of you maybe talk about a tradition that you might love. Some of you might say the same thing, and that's totally okay, but I think it'd be great if each of you might want to share about a Colgate traditional event that you really love. And I'll let anyone kind of go first. I don't want to put anyone on the spot at the moment. So I want you to think about it for a second. And when you got it, just go. Just do it.
I can go.
Okay.
So I really like, especially being a member of Link staff, I get to experience it every year, but convocation at the end of orientation for the first year class. And that's kind of when we all gather as Link groups, as FSEMs, and we eat dinner down near the lake under a tent. And then we all get to process up Willow Path and up onto campus, led by our senior honor society. And then everyone goes into the chapel and kind of listens to the dean, the president talk, Provost Hux, people who like welcome you as students into the community. So that's something that really has stuck with me, because I get to experience it every year with my own Link group. And I think it's just a really nice tradition. We all usually get dressed up and everyone takes an FSEM picture in the same spot every year. Sometimes it's raining and it's a disaster, but like that's fun anyway. So yeah, that's just something really fun that I like to experience at orientation every year.
Okay. Awesome.
Adding on to that, I guess. So as a part of convocation, Estelle mentioned that you process up the hill. And for those of you that have visited campus, you know that our academic quad is at the top of a hill. And so you begin your experience as Colgate students with bagpipes playing as you process up the hill on the night before your first day of classes. And then at the end of your Colgate career, we have a special tradition called Torchlight, which is when students carry what represents, I guess, the torch of knowledge, and you process down the hill with the same bagpipes playing to indicate that your, Colgate career has come to a close. So I think that's a really powerful event as well, especially being a part of convocation at the beginning and then witnessing the graduates walk down at the end of the year to really just, tie off the loose ends of your Colgate experience. And yeah, it's very powerful and beautiful ceremony that has been happening for hundreds of years. So that's another tradition that I love.
Awesome. Thank you.
One thing that I really like is a tradition that brings Colgate together. I'm surprised Estelle didn't bring it up, Dance Fest. I really like, even though I'm not involved in any dance group and I can't dance at all, it's definitely one of the most popular events at Colgate. It happens once each semester where all the dance groups at Colgate perform, I think one, maybe two events, whatever that's called. And the chapel is usually packed. The line before it starts stretches all the way across the quad because everyone has a friend in a dance group that they're going to go to support. And it's always a super fun experience. And there's really funny moderators usually. And it's just a really cool, I think display of the Colgate community and everyone coming together for something like that.
Okay. Awesome.
I'm kind of gonna throw two of them together. The first being Colgate Day, as I'm sure all of you know. The number 13 holds a very special place in Colgate's heart. So every Friday the 13th, Colgate, there's not one really symbolic thing. Usually student government will do something like give away chipwiches or sometimes they'll give away some free merch. But it's more so just an opportunity to really kind of dive deeper than you would on any normal day into the what it really means to be a Colgate student. You see a lot more students wearing Colgate apparel, and there's not really anything besides the fact that it is a Friday the 13th that ties it together, but it's a good opportunity to kind of take more pride and more esteem than you usually would in being a Colgate student. And then another opportunity for that is Charter Day, which falls on, I believe it's March 5th. It's kind of the anniversary of when the original charter for Colgate was signed. So they'll chime the bells on the chapel, and usually Canosione, the Senior Honor Society, will do something really cool for that event. And so those are 2 days where there's not really like a central event like a dance fest perhaps, but there's just, it's a day where although we take pride in being Colgate students every day, that's kind of one where we get to really reflect on how fortunate we are to be on that campus and to be a member of the community.
Awesome. Ellie, you were going to say something about the 13th day, I think. I just saw it in your face. I don't know why, but.
About this summer?
Yes.
So this summer, we are going to bring the Colgate community together even a notch further. So while I don't believe there are any actual Friday the 13th, we're excited that we're going to be celebrating our own special Colgate days on the 13th of each month, June, July, and August in the next few months. So you all can look forward to special events on those days as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Ellie. And Anisha, I think you were going to say something about a tradition that you love.
Yeah, so a tradition that I really enjoy, it's not really an event, but the Colgate chipwiches, like Mark mentioned. I remember getting one as soon as I did, or at the end of my first tour, when I visited Colgate as a junior in high school. After convocation, they give them out. It's just like the Colgate mascot as much as anything else. When I was abroad, I was studying abroad this past semester in Switzerland. I remember distinctly missing Colgate, so I spent an entire day looking for a chipwich just to get that sense of home.
That's awesome. Did you find one? That's my question, actually. Did you find one?
I did, but I don't know what is so special about the Colgate chipwiches, but they're massive and the cookies are so soft that like I found one, but it just wasn't the same.
Yeah. All right, good to know. So the Colgate chipwich is only truly a Colgate chipwich. There is no other comparison to that one. Okay. All right, good to know. Johanna?
On the note of food, one of my favorite traditions is Franksgiving. So one of our dining halls is called Frank. And every year, like, I think it's like a week before Thanksgiving break, they'll do Franksgiving. And the line will be like out the door, like incredibly long. Sometimes it's freezing out, but everyone's waiting for their Franksgiving meal. And they just like have like, there's nice music playing in the dining hall. It's all decorated. And they have so much food and it is so good. And it's just like a nice Thanksgiving meal. Everyone is so happy. And you know, sometimes before Thanksgiving, like work is definitely picking up and it's just a really nice like study break and time to like spend with your friends.
Awesome. So we are really close to the hour. So I'm going to ask each person rather quickly to share a piece of advice that you would give an incoming student. So Nick, do you want to start us off since you did your introductions first?
Yeah, so I think the piece of advice that I would like to give you all is everyone's transition to college is different. So while it may seem like all your friends are adjusting really quickly and finding like their community and their home at Colgate or whatever college you attend, it like may not 100% be the case. So just keep an open mind and understand that your transition will be different than everyone else's. And the friends you meet first year are not necessarily the ones that like are your best friends or the ones that define your college career overall.
Great.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to echo what Nick said. Like, even I've seen two sisters go through college, and I was still shocked about what the real college experience looks like. I think despite having it explained to me 1,000 times, like, oh, this is exactly what college is like, you're always going to be caught off guard. And that doesn't just change the first time you step on campus. It'll keep on changing. I also just really want to quickly address, I think, Sophie's question from earlier. As a V, fortunately, there are 4 breakdowns of last names, and they kind of rotate. So one semester, I might be the very last to choose classes, but then the next one, I'm the very first. So fortunately, that does rotate. Also, if you have other questions about anything, feel free to email us.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, so coming into college is definitely overwhelming, but I think that when Colgate first started to feel like home for me was when I felt like I started to get to know people and I kind of understood what was going on. So my advice would be to join stuff, join clubs, join organizations, try new things, because I think that's the best place to meet new people and feel places that start to feel like home.
Great.
For me, I think some advice I wish someone would have given me is that it's okay to ask for help. Colgate is full of really, really passionate and driven students. And so it can be really hard to like get caught up in all of that and feel like you can't ask for help. Like that's a sign of weakness. But something that Colgate's really strong with is that everyone there really is there to help you succeed and they really care about your college career. So it would be really good for people to know just like office hours with professors or even some of the resources we have like the counseling center, all those places, like it's okay to ask for help and they're just there to help make your college experience the best possible. So I think that would be some advice I would share.
Awesome.
I would say, kind of going off of Anisha's point, to definitely try to sign up for a club that you have never done before. This is a really excellent opportunity to try new things. And a lot of clubs, like a lot of people start having absolutely no idea, having never done it before. So for example, I actually joined a dance group that Estelle leads my sophomore year, and I am absolutely terrible at dancing, like have never danced before. And it's one of my most favorite involvements. It's just absolutely so much fun. So yeah, it's a really great opportunity to learn new things about yourself by signing up for something new.
Awesome. And Ellie, can you bring us home with your piece of advice that you would have for our incoming students?
Sure. It's not that crazy profound, but I'll try. So I was very undecided when I came into Colgate in terms of what I wanted to major in. So I really made sure to try to take courses in many different departments throughout the university to try to get a sense of like what I was really passionate about and what I could see myself doing further into my college career. And so I actually finished my areas of inquiry requirements within my first 3 semesters, I think, just because I was trying out things all over the place. So with that, though, of course, I was very confused with what I wanted to major in. So every time I took a different course, I basically was like, oh, now I'm going to go pre-med. Now I'm going to be a poli-sci major. Like it just kept flip-flopping around. But I guess I would say there's something to be learned from every course that you take. Estelle is a perfect example. She's pre-med and all ingrained in the natural sciences, but she was in English FSEM with us. And I think she would say there was something to learn from that and probably made her writing better. So that's my like longer-winded way of saying, yeah, there's so much to take advantage of at Colgate all throughout every department. And even if you're very set in stone going in knowing you would like to be pre-med or an English major or go into econ, that's awesome. And you can definitely do that right away. But I would still encourage you to explore other areas because there are countless stories that people change their mind when they least expect it or declare a different minor, like Nick said. So definitely take advantage and take all sorts of courses throughout your 4 years.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone, the panelists as well as the attendees for joining us this evening. We have another webinar scheduled for next week, so you're welcome to join us. There will be 6 different students. I'll be hopefully asking them different questions because we'll have different experiences that they'll be able to share. If you want to learn more about these panelists, there is a bio of each of them on our new students website. So if you just Google new students at Colgate, it'll direct you to the new students website page. And in there is an outline of our panelists from this week, as well as our panelists from next week. Part of that also lists their email addresses. So if you have specific questions of things that they've talked about that you would like to ask them, feel free to email them directly. If you have just a general question, I'm not sure who to ask, you could email our new students at Colgate email address, and someone will get back to you hopefully within the next day or so. I know we weren't able to get to, I think there was 2 questions here. We can feel free to email one of the panelist mentors or again, the new students email account, and we'll make sure that we get an answer to your question. So thank you all very much for attending. We hope you enjoy the rest of your evening and have a great summer, everyone. So thanks so much.